Picture London in December 1952. Now, London's famous for its fog, right? But this was a nightmare. For 5 straight days, a thick, toxic, yellow-black cloud just descended and choked the city. It brought the world's largest metropolis to a dead stop and killed thousands in this silent, suffocating catastrophe. This is the story of the Great Smog.
Just let that sink in. An eyewitness said that. Imagine the sheer horror of watching people around you literally fighting for the most basic thing there is, a single breath of clean air.
And this was the reality on the streets. I mean, this wasn't some distant haze. It was a thick, soupy blanket that was so dense it completely erased the world, even the ground right beneath you. So this was the situation for millions of people. And it begs the question, how on earth did a normal weather event spiral into one of the worst environmental disasters in modern history? What was the real price people paid?
So, in this explainer, we're going to dive right into the heart of that smog. We'll start with that terrifying first day, then break down the science, the perfect storm that made it so deadly. We'll see how the city was held hostage, uncover the shocking real death toll, and finally, look at how this absolute tragedy ended up creating a legacy that helps protect the very air we all breathe today.
Everything kicked off on Friday, December 5th. Now, Londoners, they were used to these thick fogs they called pea soupers. But as that day turned to night, everyone knew this was different. The air got heavy, it got dark, and it had this nasty, acrid smell. A normal fog was turning into something much, much worse.
And the impact was immediate. I mean, the city was crippled. Visibility dropped to just a few feet. All public transport, except for the tube, just stopped. Car accidents went through the roof. And the craziest part, the smog was so thick it was seeping indoors. It got in through every crack, forcing theaters and cinemas to cancel shows because the audience literally couldn't see the stage.
But this wasn't just fog. It was a chemical weapon. To really get this story, you have to understand how a simple weather event became a mass casualty event.
Well, the answer is a deadly cocktail of factors. It was a perfect storm, really, a combination of freak weather and just everyday human life that cooked up a toxic brew on a scale nobody had ever seen before. Let's break it down. First, it got unusually cold, so everyone in London was burning way more coal than usual to stay warm. Second, a weather system called an anticyclone parked itself right over the city. Think of it like a giant lid, creating what's called a temperature inversion that trapped all that smoke at street level. Third, and this is key, the coal people were burning was junk. Post-war Britain was exporting its good coal, leaving Londoners with cheap, low-grade stuff called nutty slack that was packed with sulfur. And finally, you add all of that to the pollution already being pumped out every day from massive power stations and all the cars and buses. The sheer amount of pollution was just mind-boggling. We're talking 1,000 tons of smoke particles pumped into the air every single day. But the real killer? That was the chemistry. Those 370 tons of sulfur dioxide mixed with the water in the fog and transformed into a staggering 800 tons of corrosive sulfuric acid. People were effectively breathing a dilute acid.
And so, for 4 long days, from December 5th to the 9th, the city was completely trapped under this toxic blanket. That perfect storm had created a chemical siege, and it was holding millions of people hostage in their own city.
Life just became surreal. It was dangerous. You couldn't walk, you had to shuffle, feeling for the curb with your feet. The smog wasn't just outside, it was inside too, leaving this greasy, sulfur-smelling film on everything. The hospitals, they were overflowing with people gasping for breath. It got so bad that undertakers ran out of coffins. Even prize-winning cattle at a livestock show were found dead, asphyxiated by the air.
When the fog finally broke on December 9th, the sky cleared up, but the true scale of the horror was just starting to sink in. The next job was figuring out the human cost.
So, in the weeks right after, the government came out with an official number, and it was shocking. 4,000 people had died as a direct result of the smog. For a 5-day weather event, that figure is just horrifying.
But as terrible as that number was, it didn't even come close to the real story. The initial count was just the beginning. It only looked at the deaths during that 1 week, completely missing the lingering, deadly impact.
Yeah, later research showed the real toll was closer to 12,000 people. You see, the smog had weakened so many, especially the very young, the elderly, and anyone with existing health problems, that the death rate in London stayed sky-high for months.
This chart really shows you the long tail of the disaster.
That initial 4,000 was just the tip of the iceberg. An extra 8,000 deaths that were first blamed on things like the flu were later directly connected to the devastating long-term damage the smog did to people's lungs.
The sheer scale of the death toll was something no one could ignore. It forced a reluctant government and a completely shocked public to finally do something. This disaster became the turning point in the whole fight against air pollution.
You can draw a straight line from the disaster to the solution. The 1952 smog led directly to government research, which led to the landmark Clean Air Act of 1956. This new law banned black smoke and even gave people money to switch to cleaner fuels. The change wasn't overnight. Another smog in 1962 killed 750 people. But that just proved how necessary the laws were, and it set the UK on a brand new path toward cleaner air.
It's a pretty sobering thought, isn't it? The environmental rules and the awareness we kind of take for granted today were born out of this absolutely terrifying and lethal event. The Great Smog is this stark reminder of what can happen when we ignore the air that keeps us alive.
And that really leaves us with a big question for today. Back then, the threat was visible. You could taste it, you could feel it choking you. Today, a lot of our biggest environmental threats are invisible. It really makes you wonder, what dangers are we underestimating right now?
If you found this dive into one of history's most insane environmental disasters interesting, you should definitely check out our Unusual History Events playlist for more stories like this. And hey, don't forget to subscribe to Notebook Summaries so you don't miss what's next. Thanks for watching.